Texting is a tool, not a coping mechanism. And if you are using it as a coping mechanism, now is the time to start studying ourselves. Now is the time to start building those amazing connections and getting rid of that toxic relationship that you're creating with texting. Texting is seriously a huge part of the modern dating and why a lot of dating isn't happening, why people are staying single or this hookup culture. But build the connection. That's what this is really about. Hey, I'm Courtney Brooke, and this is Hustle for Happiness podcast. We are all on this journey to find happiness, and let's face it, it takes work. And honestly, it's not always rainbows and butterflies. This podcast is dedicated to helping you navigate life and cut through the noise. As a certified life coach, recovering perfectionist, and survivor of the foster care system, I'm all about keeping things real. With my unique outlook on life that is truly infectious, we cover everything from achieving happiness and optimal self-care to stories of those sharing their wisdom and expertise. Thank you for showing up for yourself. Now, let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. We are talking about connection today and specifically around texting and how often we think that the more we text, the more connection we have. And I'm here to remind you and bring you back to a little intentionality into our texting game, not just for dating, not just for relationships, but with our partners, our friends, maybe even family, but also just to learn the patterns around what we're doing and the motivations. And just a little mindset shift on how we can just bring a little more connection and intentionality when we text and into our lives. You know, as a mindset coach, I am so big on intentionality and how we can bring more fulfillment into our lives. And a lot of the conversations I have and coaching sessions I have with not just friends, but clients about texting and over texting and, what that really means. And I'm here to remind you what the purpose of texting is and what it's meant for and how we can bring that intentionality into the conversations we're having on and off the phone. And before we get into it, I brought back the high, low, and buffalo, all my solo podcasts, my solo cast episodes. I love doing the high and low buffalo. And I dropped it off just a little bit because I was afraid to get personal. Yes, on my own podcast. And I went through a flow of like, I don't want to share anything. Do people even like hearing about it? And then I started getting messages from you guys. And you're like, Courtney, we'd love to hear the high and low buffalo again. And just to remind you, the high is the good or something warm feeling, exciting, great. And then the low, obviously low. And then the buffalo, just something interesting, unplanned, surprising. It could be not necessarily positive. It just in the middle, but unexpected. So my high is I'm sitting here on my couch. I have baby Theo, our newest family member. He's the fluffy Frenchie. I got him for Christmas. He's chewing on something. If you hear him during the episode, it's just the baby boy. We're sitting here with the fire. There's snow falling. The sun just set. And I have the house to myself. And, we've been going through a rough time with Olivia and I haven't had time to reflect. We were traveling over New Year's and to have the house to myself, it's quiet. I can do what I want. I'm making peace with the fire and, there's little messes everywhere. And I'm okay with that. I used to freak out, but I remind myself that I live in this house. It's supposed to look lived in. Theo's toys are everywhere, like everywhere. And I've really been enjoying my week here by myself. James is in Switzerland with Olivia, and it's just been great to have the house to myself. And I've been doing this reset, this gut reset. No meat, no caffeine, no alcohol, no sugar, no processed food. Just for a week, just to give myself a break. And I can't remember the last time I actually took a break from eating meat. And it's not that I love eating burgers. I love burgers. I love bison. I love lamb chops. Don't get me wrong. I love my food. But I was like, when was the last time I did just a mini reset? And that's what I'm doing. And I feel really good. I'm at peace. I'm on day 6 of it. And I highly recommend just resetting from things, whether it is from a food or maybe social media or cutting out something. I feel like when we cut out things, it brings back a gratitude piece into our life of, oh yes, this beautiful piece of meat, or yes, I missed having that cookie. And I love doing the reset. My low, from my low, I'm navigating a lot of uncertainty right now with my career, what direction I want to go. I spoke with Dr. Jen. She's coming on the podcast. Or she had actually, I think she just came on if we're doing this order, right? I pre-record some of these. But she gave me some great advice. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my career. Like, do I speak? Do I continue? Do I write my book? Do I do a TED Talk? Do I go back to school and get my doctorate in neurology? Those of you tuning in, I love the mindset. I grew up in foster care. I was an orphan. I was adopted too. So there's some happiness. But I've been always fascinated with the mind and behaviors and how do I evolve that? And, sometimes I question myself as life coach good enough, right? Are all my certifications to coach good enough? Are all my learnings? And so I'm in this place of just uncertainty of how I'm going to navigate. And I'm sure some of you feel that way with your career or maybe your relationship or, maybe someone's getting older in your life and there's just uncertainty or maybe even just started a new job, but sit in that uncertainty. It's okay to be messy. And I'm embracing that right now. And so my low right now is I'm uncertain. It feels funny and I don't like that feeling. And I'm just like questioning myself. And so I that feeling is uncomfortable. And that's why it's my low. And I'm working through it. And I encourage you guys to work through it. Don't rush through it. Work through it. Let it work through itself. That's what I'm doing. So if you're feeling that way uncertain, message me. Let's connect because we can totally work together on that. And I can help you work through that as well. And then my buffalo. Gosh, my buffalo. So something just interesting that happened. I recently joined a women's YPO forum and it's all about vulnerability and confidentiality. And it's a group of 5 of us here in Jackson Hole. We're part of a YPO chapter and the YPO is like a bigger organization. And why it's my buffalo is because it's a group of women from 33 to 76, so to speak. And I love the age group. I love the diversity. I love the dimension. And I am so excited. We just started our group together, us women, and I'm just excited to create a bond. I've never created a bond with a group of women like that. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to moderate it and bring my coaching skills to this group and honestly to learn and grow. I mean, just another opportunity to connect in a deeper way. Like, that's amazing. And I struggle with sharing. I know it might not seem like it, which is one of the reasons why I started this podcast is to just share more. And sharing is scary. Oh my gosh, you guys, I cried so much on our first meeting. It was beautifully done. But I encourage you to share. Share even if it feels comfortable or if you just have one person you can share with, keep that going because that takes so much skill and it's so beautiful. And I highly, highly encourage you to do that. All right, so let's just get straight into the episode. I'm honestly really excited about this. Again, this is just a mindset shift on how if you're an over texter or constantly checking your phone or looking for reassurance if they responded back to you, this is for you. Or if you're just kind of in that texting trap, this might also be for you. Just to reset it. Like I'm doing a reset on my gut. Maybe we need to just reset your texting game just a little bit. All right, so let me just start by saying I have been there. I have back in my single days, when I was trying to prove myself with how many friends I had was how much connection I had. Same kind of thing, like how much texting, how many people. Oh, I used to always see my friends' phones light up. Oh my gosh, they're getting texts back. Why aren't I? Oh my gosh, they must be loved, right? Like, why not me? And I call that texting fatigue. Whether it's with your partner, friend, or coworker, texting all day. That's really what this is about is texting all day and how it's leaving you feeling drained, disconnected, and times probably even let down or just like, what? Like confused and sad inside and not feeling good. And so today we're just unpacking how over texting and why over texting creates that fatigue and what healthy relationships actually look like when texting is used the right way. There's different ways we can use texting, and some ways aren't better than other ways. And so we're going to break that down. Hang with me. It's a short, fun episode, and I'm going to share some of my own personal moments. I'm going to share how I fell into overtexting and the mindset shifts that actually have helped me and I coach on with my clients and share with my friends when we do get that way. It happens to all of us, wherever you're at in life. And so I think this is just a good reminder to reset, set your intentions for texting this year. And your phone and what connection really is. So let's just get into it. I remember my days when I used to text and constantly text and look for that text and wait for that text. And, or if I didn't get that text after we've been texting all day, I'm like, wait, what happened? Do they not like me? Or, oh my gosh, they're canceling on me. I used to literally blow up if someone would cancel plans on me. It would literally infuriate me and make me so sad. And that's what texting, I used to fall that trap. And then I started breaking down, why was I getting so upset? And what were some of the problems I was seeing? When I was over texting, I was constantly seeking validation through text. I constantly avoided phone calls. I was never into phone calling. Or, when I did want to meet up with someone, especially in dating, I wouldn't see them right away. I would push off the dating. And I think that was a huge part into my motivation of what I was getting through texting. Think of like emotional burnout or work burnout or, all of that stuff is from texting fatigue. Texting leads to letdown. Hear me out. Like over texting is like running a marathon when there's no finish line. You're constantly messaging, analyzing, and waiting for replies, but it doesn't mean is a leading meaningful connection. I mean, think about it. Think about the relationships we've had. I've had so many relationships where I'm like, oh, this is going good. This is going so good. I even had a call with my friend the other day and she was like, we hit it off. We had great conversation. He was witty. He texted back fast. And then all of a sudden he stopped. That's texting fatigue, right? When you're texting all day and you realize that at the end of it, you actually don't feel closer. You're just tired. You're like, wait, what did we even talk about? And so that's one of the problems with texting fatigue is that burnout, that emotional burnout where you have this false connection based on how long you've been texting. And most of the time it's all day. So that's a sign. If you've been texting all day, this is a sign to pull back. Pull back, you're getting emotional burnout, texting fatigue. Another problem that I constantly am seeing when I'm coaching or hearing my friends talk about even in relationships is the letdown or the false expectations. When you're texting, the conversation is flowing well. When you meet in person, though, it's like talking to a stranger, right? Like you're texting so well, and then you meet in person, you're like, wait, why is this like pulling teeth? Like, why is this so difficult? I thought we had a connection. And that's the letdown. That's a letdown of what texting can do, what texting fatigue does. That's the danger of over texting. It builds a version of this other person in your head based on messages, or now there's chat GBT. You don't really know what people are saying. Let's be real. And so this is the huge problem is you're building this person up in your head through texting, which is not really connecting. But in real life, it's messy, it's unfiltered, and that's connection. The messiness is the connection. The messiness is seeing someone stutter, or let me take that back, I didn't mean it that way, or embracing a pause. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that just because there's quietness when you're with somebody, that doesn't mean you don't have a connection. So I don't want to blur those two lines. But you're on a roll texting, everything is perfect and smooth, and you're laughing through texting, right? Through texting. And then all of a sudden you meet or you talk on the phone and it's crickets. This is so important to why we should move our conversations to in person or off texting so you get to know that connectedness. And if it is awkward, I'm not saying run for the field and drop the friend if it is uncomfortable. What I'm saying is allow connectedness in calling. If it is a little awkward, okay, next call will get better, but make it intentional. Say, let's talk off the phone. That is such a great way to move the conversation, to build the conversation and build a dimensional conversation. I mean, you don't want to just be texting all the time and then not have any connection on the phone. So remember that, right? Move your conversation, see how they are, because texting isn't always going to be perfect. Call them, connect with them. And then another problem I'm constantly seeing, this is a third problem. So just know, like, these are common things. You're not only one. I'm just bringing out things so you guys can understand, see how like texting fatigue shows up in different ways and how it can really like affect our mindset and our mental health. And we don't even know it sometimes. It's so subtle, but it's big. Again, it's subtle, but it's big. The third one is texting fatigue can damage relationships. So if you're already in that relationship, texting can be overwhelming. Your friend sends you 7 texts in a row, or why haven't you texted me back? Like, are you that friend that is overwhelming? I know that when I was younger, and sometimes I do that with even my mom, I blow her up. I word text her and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I remember sometimes I would remember feeling frustrated in a friendship because I felt like the other person expected those replies all the time. And then when I didn't reply, they'd think I was ignoring them. I was mad at them. Or maybe you're one of those that, why aren't you texting me back? And I want to remind you that the over texting and then the absence of texting can damage those relationships. I get overwhelmed with text. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's too many people to text back. If you're one of those people, just pick up the phone and call that person. If you're not getting your text back, don't sit and wallow. Like, call them and say, hey, texted you, is everything okay? Or, hey, texted you, I want your advice on this. Boom. Don't sit and wait because you're going to be the one that is getting hurt, honestly. And texting doesn't, just because someone doesn't text you back, that doesn't mean they hate you, right? And so texting fatigue can lead to that as well. And I want to remind you, think about this when you're texting and over texting. Is this texting back an obligation? And what do I mean by that? Like, is it a chore? Is it painful? Is it, oh my gosh, I have to text them back? Like, is it really serving your relationship? I remember when James and I were dating, and we still apply this rule, not even a rule, we still apply this to when we were first dating, is we don't say good morning or good night. Because when we always said good morning and good night, I was in other relationships where that would happen. And the minute they stopped saying good morning or good night, I would be like, something is wrong. They don't like me. They're with another girl. Oh my gosh, we're bad. They're not thinking of me the first time they wake up. There's those memes. They're the first person when you wake up, you text. Like, no, 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 no. Like, that is so opposite. James and I still don't text good morning and good night. Again, I don't want that text to be out of obligation. And so when he actually does say good morning or good night, I'm like, oh, that's really sweet. Like, thanks, babe. Like, good morning. That was a pleasant surprise versus an expectation. Again, we can change the way we see this and use texting as a tool, right? Not an obligation, not because we're scared, not because we're worried, a tool. Remember, like, just because you text doesn't mean you're connected. And the same thing, just because they don't text back doesn't mean you're not connected. So those are 3 bigger problems I see. And I just see this so much. And so if you're one of those, just start noticing, oh, I'm doing that. Oh, I'm doing that. And just start noticing. And that's all we can do to start.
Hey everyone, I am really moved to interrupt this episode with something that's been on my mind. You see, I recently received a message from one of our listeners. Let's call him John. He originally reached out to me for marketing advice, but our journey together took an unexpected turn. John shared, "Thank you for helping me experience life better. I appreciate your guidance and your gentle challenges. What a beautiful ride it has been." His words really struck a chord with me because they highlight the incredible impact that coaching can have on our lives, like how it can shift our perspectives and open up new possibilities. So here's the thing. I want to extend a special offer to you, our Hustle for Happiness community. As a gesture of gratitude, I am personally offering a complimentary coaching session. No strings attached, just a chance to explore how coaching can support you in your own journey. So if you're curious or feeling stuck, click the link below to schedule your session whenever you're ready. Let's chat and see how we can make your ride through your life even more beautiful. Thanks for listening and allowing me to share this with you. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Now I want to flip the script. I've talked about things that break relationships, but I also want to just talk about healthy relationships. And I want you to think about the healthiest relationship in your life. Think about it, whether it's your partner, your best friend, or a family member, right? Chances are those relationships actually don't thrive on constant texting. I can agree to that to 1,000% because I have a lot of great friendships that aren't around texting and not calling, but just scheduling our calls. Hey, phone date, or we don't text every single day. And there's this stigma around because you're in a relationship, you talk every day, you have to check in. Sometimes there's times where I'm just saying this. There are times in James and I's relationship where we don't check in all day. And at the end of the day, we check in. Or there'll be a whole day. And it's not by default or because we don't trust each other, or it's because we're doing other things. It just is, and it's healthy. And we thrive on trust. We thrive on when we do talk, we're connecting. And oftentimes when you're over texting, it's because you don't trust. And I know this happened to me when I was first dating. I wanted to know every single move. Any boyfriend I ever dated, anytime they text me, I want to know them, what they're doing, who they're with, all the time, checking in, sending me pictures. And honestly, for the first year of James and I's relationship, when James was on social media, I didn't follow James on social media. I purposely chose not to see what he was doing because I didn't want to put that in my brain. I didn't want to get attached to it. And so for me, if you're like that, where you're constantly obsessing, especially if you're in newly dating or if you don't trust your partner, really come back to you. I mean, why don't you trust them? And really dissect that, because a lot of that underlying meaning of over texting is because there's some trust going on as well, or some insecurities, and that's you, right? So again, we're trying to build intentional connection. Again, texting is a tool, not a coping mechanism. Again, texting is a tool, not a coping mechanism. And if you are using it as a coping mechanism, now is the time to start studying ourselves. Now is the time to start building those amazing connections and getting rid of that toxic relationship that you're creating with texting. Texting is seriously a huge part of the modern dating and why a lot of dating isn't happening, why people are staying single or this hookup culture. But build the connection. That's what this is really about. I am so big on, James and I not texting during the day and really allowing myself to be present, because when you're over texting, think about when you're doing something and you're texting somebody, are you really being present at eating lunch or with your girlfriend? Or are you constantly texting, checking your phone? Because that's going to damage even the connections you're making while you're texting someone. So really just bring that intentionality back, and it's a reminder again, texting is slowly creeping in and we don't need to let it, right? It's just a mindfulness thing. And that's what I'm here to bring to your attention. It's just being mindful with texting. So I came up with some of the texting habits and how to avoid fatigue and the mindset shifts around this. And I really want to shift your texting habits. And this is subtle, but they're good ones because they helped me, they've helped my clients, and they might help you. And that's the purpose of this podcast, is if you could leave with one gem, 2 gems, or 3 gems, it's the awareness piece of texting. But then also maybe you're aware and you're like, how do I get out of it? How do I move on? How do I avoid it? And so I've said it a little bit, but reframing texting as a tool and not a necessity, right? Texting is a tool to support any of your relationships. It's not the foundation. It shouldn't be the only way you're connecting in your relationships. And if that's something you're constantly doing, if that's what you see, wow, a lot of my friendships are based on texting. Okay. Texting and hanging out. Or if you have a long distance friendship and we only text and send memes, like let's start building a little dimension into how we communicate, whether it's calling, sending a letter, hanging out in person, scheduling FaceTime dates. There's different things we can do to bring intentionality and build connection. But it's that face-to-face interaction, because think about it. If you're FaceTiming someone, I mean, I know there's a lot of us that do the dishes while we FaceTime, but that's still so important because you're getting that connection. And again, it's a tool, not a foundation. So use it for quick check-ins or sharing or coordinating plans or saying, are you here yet? Right? Keep it short and simple. But instead of texting paragraphs about your day, say, I'd love to tell you this in person, or can we chat on the phone when you have time? Are you free this weekend? That small shift changes everything. When you notice yourself sending a paragraph too, this is also a reality check or a little sign for you. If you're the ones that send a long text, that's your sign to meet them in person or call them on the phone. Again, texting is a tool. Check-ins, quick updates, sending pictures. I know some of you guys don't do that. You use social media, but I still send my mom pictures. I still try to make an intentional decision to connect in different ways. And so just remember, check-ins, keep it short, keep it sweet. So number one, just keep it as a tool, not a foundation. It's not a necessity of how you communicate. Another mindset shift is just pause and reflect before you text. I know some of us, when we have a little bit too wine or that extra martini, we send that text to that person, or we feel a little brash, right? Or maybe it's you're texting out of urgency because you saw someone post on Instagram to something you weren't invited to. right? Let's pause and reflect before we text, right? Here's something I started doing. Before I send a text, I ask myself, why am I sending this? Am I texting because I genuinely have something to share? Or am I texting because I'm bored or looking for validation or reassurance, right? That pause before I text, that's the intention piece, the pause. That's how we can bring that intentionality, that mindfulness into our texting. So say you're one that just rips off a text right away, or you're saying hey to someone because you want to get that validation of, oh, I want to see if they text me back, or I send this text because they haven't texted me, right? So start studying, am I sending this text? And a big cue for me, and I used to do this because I used to get so upset when I didn't get a text back or reply. I would say, am I sending this text for me or for them? And how I know that is if I don't get a response back, I will be okay. Like, for instance, the most common one I see is they don't say thank you to me after I wish them a happy birthday. And I go, did that text for them mean for you too? Because you sent them a message. Are you seeking the validation for a thank you? Like, start studying, like, okay, if they didn't respond, would I be upset? And if that's the case, then we really need to understand why we're sending these texts. Are we looking, again, for that reassurance? And 90% of the time we are. And we don't need it. You don't need that reassurance, but sit in with yourself and maybe just hold back that text this week if you're one of those. Try it. Just try holding back a text or pausing before we text. Like, why am I sending this message? Am I jealous? Am I mad? Am I angry? Right? Come on. Like, start studying ourselves. And this is where these subtle changes, and watch how your energy changes. I'm not kidding. You're going to get your power back. That's where the joy is. You're like, wait, I am joy. The responsibility is, wait, I don't need to send this text. I'm actually doing it because I'm being a brat. I'm doing it because I actually am butthurt that I wasn't invited to someone's birthday, right? So understanding that. Another mindset shift is just setting boundaries with texting. It's subtle, but we can set boundaries for probably anything. And so let's bring that into texting. Some of us have boundaries with our family, our boyfriends, our partners, our husbands, our wives. You can set boundaries with texting. And they're so important. Texting and boundaries are so important, not just for them, but for you as well. And so, for example, I try to avoid texting late at night. Like, I try to have real interaction. So if they want to talk on the phone or they text, let's hop on the phone. That's actually when I have more time at night and during meals, or, especially when I'm spending time with James or friends. I actually have a boundary to not check my phone. And I often always flip my phone over. That's a boundary. Like, I'm done with my phone for a bit. When I record, when I am out to dinner, I just feel like texting takes us away from the present moment. And so to have those healthy boundaries and to remind yourself, wait, I want to be present with my food, with my meal. Maybe if you go on walks, just set a mini boundary and keeping that space between your phone. I think that we all often have our phones in our hands so much, or it travels around the house. Try leaving your phone places. Like, leave your phone in your purse or on the counter if you're upstairs putting your laundry away. Just practice a little more separation from our phones, because I think that helps us not want to look at our phones and then not text. So it's just little boundaries, but they're subtle. But we can start these today and create a healthy relationship with texting and connection. And this one specifically just for ourselves. And then if someone's texting you on the other side and you're not responding because you're being so present, that's teaching them to be present with what they're doing too. So it's a gift and a gift for all of us. And if they say, hey, why aren't you texting back? Say, I've been really practicing working on being present. And by me doing that is not being attached to my phone as much. And that's how we can start. It's just creating separation or space. And then I said this a little bit before, but the last mindset shift is just replacing that text with more interactions, more calls, more in person, more coffee dates, less paragraphs, honestly, less paragraphs, keep it simple. And one of the best ways to do that is just getting off of text. Simply, you feel so much more connected in person, or when you hear someone's voice or see their experience. There's an energy transfer. And this is probably the best, is take it off of texting and bring it into real life. Hear the person's voice, hear them cry, see them, hug them, laugh together, spill coffee together, whatever it is. I've done this so many times. I just did this with my women's group, and it's fulfilling. It feels good. And it's just authentic. And that's what really, we're bringing the joy back into our lives, because technology isn't going anywhere. But if we have a mindfulness around this, it's it's going to change our lives. And again, the intentionality around it. All right. So I've been doing this thing where we end the episodes with just homework for the week, things we can practice. And I have 4 things we can do. You can pick one. You don't have to do them all, but let's put some things into practice. Again, this is homework. I believe in taking things off the podcast. If I can change anyone's lives, it starts with this. And the first one is just pause and reflect before texting. Just pause before you send that text message. Take a moment and ask yourself, why am I sending this? Am I doing this for them or me? And if I don't get a response back, I'm okay. Start practicing intentional texting, right? Not over burning yourself out with just this constant texting. Again, texting boundaries. Number 2 is just choose one boundary to set this week. One, like no texting during meals, or maybe no texting after 8. And notice how it feels to give yourself space. Flip that phone over. If you can't quite commit to not during meals or right when you wake up, my thing is I don't want distraction. So I actually flip my phone off. And if you have texting on your computer, like I have my computer right next to me right now, if you have texting on your computer, turn it off. Turn off that. Set boundaries. Pick a meal. Maybe it's just when you drink your coffee, or maybe it's breakfast. Like pick one meal. It doesn't have to be 3. Try something small for me this week. Number 3, what you guys could do for homework, pick one, is move one conversation to a real connection. So that means turning that text into a phone call or an in-person or a coffee date or FaceTime, right? Pay attention to how much more connected you feel after. That's what I really want you to do, is when you do move that texting, is are you uncomfortable? Are you awkward? That's growth. That's good. Work through that. That means you need more calls, more FaceTime, more in-person. Being messy is okay. This is uncomfortable for a lot of us. I don't talk to some people on the phone because I'm afraid of where that might go. And I still have those hangups, and I get into my head of what if it's awkward, or what if we don't have much to talk about? Allow for that. Allow for that. That's intimacy, is the uncomfortability. And that's where you're going to start to grow with those friendships. And 90% of the time, you're going to surprise yourself. Actually, probably 100% of the time, you're going to surprise yourself, because reality is a lot kinder than our thoughts. It's going to go much better than you planned. So just give it a try. And then reflect on your patterns. Grab that journal, and at the end of the week, journal about what you noticed. How often were you texting? What were the emotions that were driving it? Did you feel more connected or less? When we start to study our patterns, we can actually start to notice that it's all connected in different ways. And it's an easy way. Uncomfortable journaling is not easy, but it's a good way to start noticing how we're showing up in our lives. And it's like a little audit check. It's like counting your calories. You see, oh my gosh, I had 3 cookies today, a burger, and a martini. Well, you're going to start to notice, oh my gosh, I'm having 5 martinis a week. oh my gosh, I could cut out 1. So it's just creating data. Start to notice your patterns and just track them. Why were you texting? Was it half the time because you were drunk texting and you regretted it the next day? Is it because you were seeking connection? And so I want to hear how you did this week. Tag me at Hustle for Happiness Podcast. Send me a message. I want to hear how this goes. And until next time, I love you guys. Have a good week. Let's grow. Let's do this. Again, texting doesn't mean more connection. It doesn't. Let's take it off of texting. Love you guys.
I hope today's episode left you better than when I found you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tune in every Monday to kickstart your week and set your weekly intentions with me. You can find me and HFH on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, or online at heycourtneybrook.com. I firmly believe in the power of sharing. If you know someone else who would benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. And remember, when you work on you, I get to be there.